Yo, all right, big episode today because we are discussing thinning dreadlocks, and anybody that's been on a dreadlock journey for some time now has definitely experienced this once in their life at least. And truthfully, it's a natural occurrence within a dreadlock journey. A lot of people freak out about it the first time they encounter it because they don't know what to do to handle it. So today we're going to go through some causes and solutions of thinning locks and show some examples of which I found on Reddit. This is the first one that I kind of seen today. Now, thinning dreadlocks can be caused from a number of issues. This one looking like it could have been too much bleach or dye being put on the scalp. Chemicals will burn. Chemicals can reduce the amount of new growth that you're getting, and chemicals can also be the cause of burning your roots down and thinning out your locks. So for this man's case here, I could associate this problem with too much bleach that burned the locks, weakened the roots, and then quite possibly on the next visit for a retwist, it was just twisted too tight. And this is a big issue clearly for maintaining locks. This can happen more so on these types of dreadlocks. So yeah, I feel like this cause here was definitely from chemicals and possibly over twisting the lock. Basically, for this set of locks, my solution here is gonna be to stop twisting, stop coloring with the chemicals. The main solution you can actually do, I'll probably recommend across the board for all these examples, is to allow it to Congo up as best as you can with a neighboring lock. And this can be done with a crochet hook, this can be done with a rubber band, but more on that in the next examples. So we got dude's dread thinning in the middle. Now this is one of the reasons why I don't wear dreadlock beads, because if a bead is left in the middle of a lock for too long, like years on end, even months sometimes, this is the end result once you take that bead off. So this is why I stay clear, at least from wearing beads for a long period of time. You know, beads are cool like on a day-to-day basis, but never anything prolonged. I've seen people fix locks like this that are thinning in the middle, mainly using crochet hooks and or with extension hair. Now, somebody could take a piece of an extension and use the hair and wrap it around that thinning part and crochet that in to thicken up that area, or you can actually just use a crochet hook and kind of where there's a gap there, you kind of put it together and crochet that part together to strengthen it up. There's not going to really be a solution that's natural to fix this beyond just letting your lock stay the way it is. Which is fine to do as well, because at the end of the day, thinning is a natural occurrence. With freeform locks or locks in general, they kind of grow like trees, and with trees, you know, there's roots, trunks, branches, limbs, and leaves. And when there's wind and weather, things will break off naturally. So you can just also embrace the breakage and have it be. You know, a third way to kind of fix this is to you know, let it fall off or pull it off and then crochet it back with like either the extended hair once again or with a combed out section. Once the lock breaks, you can comb out each end of the break point and you can crochet that back together. The structure kind of changes after one does that, but it does solve the issue. So this lock is thinning in the middle as well, not nearly as bad as the other person here. I think this lock is fine being left as it is. There's still a lot of time to go before this gets any worse in the long term. The cause of this one might just be natural wear and tear. Their locks look pretty long also. So what can also cause this is sometimes when your locks get pulled, let's say like you're sitting down and your locks are behind your back and you get up, or they get caught on things. Excessive and prolonged catching on the locks can also stretch them out like this. So just do your best not to get them snagged on things. This doesn't look like it's a chemical thinning, or it doesn't look like it's been retwisted or interlocked too tightly. This is more of a natural thinning. So it can definitely just have it, you can just definitely leave it and let it see how it turns out. I don't think this will break. But another solution that people can do with items like this, and I've done this on my interlocks in the past, is to tie a knot or multiple knots down that section of the thinning hair, and these knots will actually strengthen that area, but it won't thicken the area up. That's one thing to note at least. Okay, so on these locks here, thinning at the root, how do I fix it? Now, that's a very interesting occurrence here, to have it thin at the root that early. This could be something to do with diet, maybe just not enough water in one's diet. But you know, for this person here, I would recommend joining this lock up with another dread nearby. Now this can be done with a crochet hook to make the Congo, or it could be done with a rubber band being left on temporarily. Maybe not at the root, but just enough to embrace it to another lock, and letting it grow in with that lock will also help solve this issue. If this man decides to leave this lock as it is, it would probably eventually break off, which then he could attach back on with a crochet hook as mentioned before. But at the end of the day, this could be from getting his hair twisted too often. Now it does look like if he does twist his hair, he's been taking a break, as there is some new growth showing. If these are free forms, this is just part of this process as well. What more can you really do when your locks behave this way, right? Locks thinning the rest of my roots are fine. So this is like an extreme example of I guess like a stretched lock. This could be what's also known as a lock slippage, where the hair kind of just slips up and away from the main strengthening core of the lock. This can be fixed mainly with a crochet hook. Reattaching it or just trying to attach it to another neighboring lock is going to be the issue. It's going to be the fix here, sorry. It's going to be the solution. The issue here is that the lock has slipped and it's hanging on by just a few strands of hair. At the end of the day, if this does break off, it's not a big deal. It was just part of your journey. And always remember, if your lock does break off, you can reattach it. The triple-headed or the double-headed crochet hooks work good. The single one also works as well, but not as much on the strengthening side. So these locks actually looking pretty free-formed. And one way to solve or prevent your locks from thinning out like this is to not do too much separation when your journey is underway. Growing Congos, letting them embrace each other and marry each other, definitely creates stronger roots and stronger locks. So if you can remember, if you can hold back from separating your locks when seeing them join together, do that, and you can also prevent this from happening in the future. So this lock thinned out in the middle from over styling the locks, probably being put into a braid up of some sort, maybe barrel twists or two-strand twists, this causing the lock to really grip and clasp in one area. Main solution here is to not do these overly tight hairdos so often. Now she's also a victim here of chemicals in her locks, which we know burn the roots, thin out the lock structure, and weaken its core. So a quick solution here is clearly to stop using chemicals, stop doing the styling, and just let them be naturally. There's no need to tie them up, braid them up every single day or every single week, you know. Allow your locks to breathe, essentially. What to do about a lock thinning at the root? Now the main solution here, a lot of people are talking about just chopping it off and sewing it back on, reattaching it. You know, the reattachment method is used with a crochet hook, but you can also sew it on. I've seen some people do with thread. I wouldn't recommend the threading technique so much. It is an option, but reattaching it with natural extended hair is probably the best bet. Or beyond that, what's even better is letting it break off, and then you comb out one end on the dread, one end on the scalp, and you reattach it with the crochet hook in that manner. Now, this lock could have been caused by too much tension, too much retwisting. Not really sure what to say, but let's also note that when we go to bed, our hair should be covered at night, because friction amongst some pillows or getting caught underneath our body weight when we're sleeping can cause this as well. So dreadlocks can thin like this. Another cause is too much scratching at the root, too much playing with your locks, too much of just touching around your head, because sometimes people be touching their locks and they pull it casually, but it ends up causing a thinning root like this, because you might have found a weak spot and you just kind of advanced it without meaning to. So rule number one is really stop touching your locks. This is a hard thing to do, as easy as it sounds. Just be cautious and aware and conscious of how often you have your hands in your hair. If you need to scratch your locks or your scalp, do it with care, do it with ease. Sometimes the fingertip is better than the nail itself. And just try not to break any new growth, any new strands of hair that are growing down there. So the cause of this one, I would say, is probably by scratching. And the best way to solve this one here is going to be either just letting it break off. I think he's got more than enough locks to take care of the missing lock that's there. It doesn't necessarily have to be reattached, but you can reattach it as well. Now, it's interesting on these examples of thinning locks, most of them are people that have maintained locks. There's only been a couple freeformers so far, and the freeform locks that often thin out, I tend to see them look like this. So this is more of a natural occurrence, and despite how it looks, there's still a lot of strength left in these locks. Now, to solve this is more of a preventative issue. You want to not separate them as much. You want to keep your hands out of your hair. But a crochet hook might be this guy's best friend here in this moment. I don't usually condone using crochet hooks for the creation of locks. I personally feel that they are meant more for solving problems with locks that arise, such as thinning locks, or if you want to really strengthen the roots. So these freeforms are actually 6 years old, and he started them with just a temporary dread sponge and then let them go after that. And for 6 years in, the first sign of a thinning lock is right now. That's pretty good and pretty common, I must say. I guess around my 6-year mark, I've also had locks do the same thing, and I ended up having a couple break off. And then I've also joined some to other locks close by using a crochet hook or using a rubber band. I've kind of tried both methods here, so nothing to be worried about, and the solution to your problems is definitely going to be one of those two techniques. I would say the biggest solution for this thinning dreadlock here is definitely going to be doubling it up with another lock close by. This lock was already really thin to begin with before the roots started to give way like this. So the best solution is going to be take a dread that's beside it, and honestly I would even avoid using a crochet hook because it's already so thin, and just put a little rubber band, just a little one there, and allow it to grow out with it, not right at the root but joining it together. I would probably put the rubber band on that stronger part of the lock, kind of halfway up the shaft of the dread there. This person's asking if this is a sign of lock thinning and should they be worried? If so, what do I do to fix this? I wouldn't say this is a sign of thinning as well. More so it looks like the lock has slipped quite a bit, but can be a common issue, especially when starting locks out. Seems to be still a lot of core strands of hair within that new growth that will still lock up if just left alone. So the best solution here is to stop touching this lock for good. even the way that one is holding it up like that for the photo, in the wrong situation and just at the most slightest tug that it might be accidental, can worsen this issue. So just leave the lock, let it do what it wants to do, which more likely than not is gonna want to join up with a lock close to it. And when that happens, don't separate it, allow it to marry up. And lastly here, we got a quick video, and he's talking about this dreadlock here that's kind of dangling. He's saying that it's thinning. That lock is in a good position beside the one next to it, where it will just Congo up on its own. There's nothing to really worry about. That lock is just kind of ahead of the game, where it dropped a little bit earlier than the rest of them. And your journey is still early in its stages, so there's lots of room for it to Congo up. And another freeformer, I think there might have been 3 freeformers in this whole video that had these thinning issues, and this isn't even really a thinning issue at the end of the day. They look great, looking fantastic. So that's pretty much it. If you guys have ever had thinning locks, I would love to know what your cause and solutions were in the comment section down below. And you know, pretty much just to top it off, stay away from the chemicals, stay away from touching your locks at the roots and tugging on them. And if you ever want to solve these, you know, also stop retwisting locks so often. And if you ever want to solve these issues, you always have the options to sew it back in, crochet it back in, rubber band it together with another lock. You can always just leave it and allow the breakage to happen. It's natural. You can tie knots in the lock to strengthen that area, and that's about it. And if I'm missing any sort of solution that you might have found works for you, also don't hesitate, let me know. And join us here on reddit.com/r/notnation and share photos of your lock journey. Till then, peace out, one love, stay happy and natty. I'm gone.
The nation.